YouTube! Welcome back to the Witchcat, your all things D&D channel. Today I proudly present my Goblin Bomber build, our character build for D&D 5th edition. So hey guys, if you go to the monster menu, this is what they tell you about the goblins. Goblins are small, black-headed, selfish humanoids that lair in caves, abandoned mines, despoiled dungeons, and other dismal settings. Individually weak, goblins gather in large, sometimes overwhelming numbers. They crave power and regularly abuse whatever authority they obtain. Goblins usually have an affinity for rats and wolves, raising them to serve as companions and mounts. Goblins are usually ruled by either the strong or the smartest among them. A goblin boss might command a single lair, while a goblin king or queen rules hundreds of goblins to ensure the tribe's survival. But goblin bosses are easily outstepped, and many goblin tribes are taken over by hobgoblin warlords or bugbear chiefs. For me, I don't really like that tribal fantasy for the goblins, that's why I normally don't play with them. But I saw these cards from Hearthstone, and I got inspired to theorycraft a character just like it. This Mad Bomber card looks very cool and very chaotic, which are crazy fun traits that I really like on my D&D characters. You see, very differently from the Forgotten Realms, on Blizzard's universe, the goblins are much like the gnomes. They are small and very intelligent creatures that create weapons and machinery to help them fight the bigger races. But although the gnomes have really reliable machinery and inventions, goblins' inventions are usually more chaotic and explosive, and this is very fun for me. Now, if you really think about it, the concept of a goblin that just throws bombs at people is really common. For example, the Green Goblin from the Spider-Man series, or even the Bat Rider from Dota 2. So this is the concept that we are trying to create today. So before we continue, some quick disclaimers. On this build we are trying to fulfill the concept of a bomber that delivers good damage to multiple targets by throwing bombs. Also, even though things like grenades and gunpowder do exist within the rules of D&D, most players will not have access to those options, therefore I will not use those items. The race we are choosing today is of course the goblins. On Mordecai's Monsters of the Multiverse, these are the features for the goblin race. They have a 30 feet movement speed even though they are small. They have dark vision, which is always fine, advantage on saving throws to win or avoid being charmed. They have a neat little feature called Fury of the Small that once you deliver damage to a creature, you can deal an additional damage equal to your proficiency bonus. Also, you can use that feature a number of times per day equal to your proficiency. And for me, the best feature of the Goblin is Nimble Escape, which will let you disengage or hide as a bonus action. This is very important for our character defensively on the early levels, because later on we will be able to fly, so our character will be very secure from melee monsters. Now looking over the initial stats for this character, we will have 15 intelligence and constitution, 14 dexterity and 10 wisdom. For this build, we're gonna use two classes, the Artificer and the Wizard. We're gonna start with 4 levels of Artificer. The spells we are taking are the cantrips Acid Splash and Fireballs. And the spell we are primarily using is Tasha's Chaotic Brew. At level 2 Artificer, we will be able to get our infusions, and I recommend taking the Arcane Focus for one of them. At level 3, we will choose our subclass for the Artificer, and of course we are choosing the Artillerist. The subclass will give us our primary feature, which is Eldritch Cannon. And at level 4 we can choose an ASI outfit, and we are going for Fate Edge. The Eldritch Cannon is the most important thing for this build. It will let us create a tiny or small cannon that can have legs. You can only create the cannon once a day, and it lasts for 1 hour or until it's destroyed. You can only create them again if you use a spell slot for that. When you create a cannon, you can choose one of the 3 options, and the one we are mostly interested in is a flamethrower, which deals 2d8 fire damage on a 15-foot cone on enemies that fail their saving throw, and half as much on a successful one. Now, let's quickly go over my assumptions for monsters bonus to saving throws. So guys, I went over multiple tables with information on the bonuses for monsters across multiple CRs on all different saving throws. But monsters usually have very different bonus to very different saving throws. For example, they usually have way better constitution saving throws than intelligence, but since we're gonna target different saving throws, I wanted to create an easy way to crunch numbers for all saving throws regardless of what stat we are targeting. So this is the solution I arrived at. I linked the monster's bonus to saving throw to our character proficiency bonus. On the beginning of the game, when our proficiency bonus is 2, I will consider monsters to have a +2 to every saving throw, and the saving throw bonus gonna be the same as our proficiency bonus until we reach a proficiency bonus of 5. From that point on, monsters bonus to saving throw will increase by 2 every time our proficiency bonus increases by 1. If that was too confusing, let me give you guys an example. When we are level 6, if we face a young white dragon of challenge rate 6, our proficiency bonus is 3. The young white dragon average saving throw bonus is 3.2, which is very near the 3 that we were expecting. Now, when we reach level 13, our proficiency bonus is 5, and according to the table, monsters should have an average saving throw bonus of 6. The adult white dragon have a 5.5 average saving throw bonus, which means we are close enough on our assumptions. Now moving on, the one infusion I'm recommending at level 2 is the Enhanced Arcane Focus, which will grant us a +1 bonus to our spell attack rolls. This bonus will increase when we reach level 10 in Artificer. In order to fulfill our concept of throwing bombs at people, ask your DM if you can reflavor the Fireball cantrip. Instead of using magic, say you create a bomb in your hand and throw at people, and the bomb explodes upon impact. I'm not gonna use Firebolt for number crunching, but I wanted to mention it because the thing about Firebolt is that you can ignite flammable objects that your enemies are wearing or carrying, and I think that would be really funny if we actually got the chance to do that in combat. The other cantrip we are using more often than not is Acid Splash, that again we are reflavoring here to be a bomb that we throw on enemies. The thing about Acid Splash, we can deliver damage to 2 creatures that are within 5 feet of each other, and they must fail a dexterity saving throw. The spell we are concentrating on for the first 4 levels is Tasha's Chaotic Brew. This spell is amazing for a first level spell. It's a really heavy hitter if you compare to your other options. It's a 30-foot line, and if a creature fails their dexterity saving throw, they start taking 2d4 acid damage at the start of each of its turns. In order to escape the effect, creatures must use their action to wash the acid off itself or another creature. Honestly, if the creatures decide to give up an action just to remove the effect, that's a really good win for you. Okay guys, so let's do a breakdown of our damage upon reaching level 4. I always assume we have 4 rounds for each combat. Unfortunately, I usually always assume we have 4 combats for each day, but since this build have a lot of moving parts, it was really difficult for me to estimate how many resources this character would have in each combat. So instead, I'm just gonna go over the best scenario for one combat. For this character, on our first turn, we're gonna use Tasha's Chaotic Brew as our concentration. For the next 3 rounds, we're gonna use the Acid Splash cantrip. On every available bonus action, we're gonna use our Eldritch Cannon, and we can use Fury of the Small up to 2 times a day or 4 total damage. I'm assuming we're gonna have a 60% chance of landing our saving throw effects here. But just as a reminder, if creatures do manage to make their saves against Eldritch Cannon, they still take half damage. Therefore, the way math works, we can simplify that effect by halving the chance we have for them to fail. So in this case, 60% becomes 80%. The average DPR for this combat with the assumptions previously mentioned is 23.7 damage. If we do want to use our Fury of the Small feature, we can peak at 24.7 average DPR. Moving on to level 8. The spells we are picking up here are Web and Shatter. The one infusion I'm recommending is the spell Refueling Ring. We are also getting the Arcane Firearm, and for the ASI or feat that we can pick up at level 8, we are boosting our intelligence. The Arcane Firearm really pumps up the damage for the Artillerist. It reads, when you cast an Artificer spell through the firearm, roll a d, and you gain a bonus to one of the spell's damage roll to the number you rolled. This is the same thing as if our cantrips have scaled twice at level 5, giving us a huge boost to our damage. The infusion we are getting is the spell Refilling Ring. It reads, while wearing this ring, the creature can recover one expended spell slot as an action. The recovered spell can be of 3rd level or lower. Once used, cannot be used again until the next dawn. I have to say here, you are able to cast Web, and Web is one of the best spells in D&D, and it stays good through your entire career. So for the love of God, use Web. The other spell we are taking, and that we are actually going to use for number crunching purposes, is Shatter. Shatter is considered the poor man's fireball. It deals 3d8 thunder damage on a failed save and half as much on a successful one. But because of our arcane firearm feature, you're actually gonna deal 4d8. Now, the spell we are using for our concentration changes, and we are actually using Bane that we were able to pick up through the Fate Touch feat. Okay guys, so let's break down the damage here, assuming we are hitting 2 creatures every turn. The strategy here is to use Bane on the first round. After that, we're gonna use Shatter and hit that same 2 creatures. On the last 2 turns, we're gonna use our Acid Slash attack. Again, for every bonus action, we're gonna use our Eldritch Cannon. And last, we can use our Fury of the Small up to 3 times a day for a total of 9 damage. The way I average the effect of Bane is that I assume that the average debuff is gonna be 2. Therefore, assuming we're gonna have a 60% chance of creatures failing that saving throw, in general, creatures are gonna have a 1.2 reduction to their saving throws, because 1.2 is 60% of 2. If the combat works similar to my assumption, you would have 31 average DPR and 33.3 if you do decide to use Fear of the Small. Moving on to level 12, we're gonna pick up 2 levels in Wizard and 2 levels in Artificer. I really would like to take Artificer levels before the Wizard levels, but because we are relying a lot on specific elemental damage, I had to take Wizard levels here. Once we reach level 12, we're taking important spells here, which are Toll the Dead and Fireball. The subclass of Wizard we are taking is the Order of Scribes. That subclass will grant us the Arcane Spellbook feature. From the Artillerist subclass, we are getting the Explosive Cannon feature, and the infusion we are able to get at level 10 Artificer is the Winged Boots. Toll the Dead is the highest damage die on all cantrips, and it deals necrotic damage. If you are facing an enemy that have resistance to either fire or acid damage, this is a good option for you. By now, this cantrip delivers 3d12 necrotic damage, which is pretty good for a cantrip. When we reach level 9 Artificer, we get the Explosive Cannon, which will increase the damage of our Eldritch Cannon by 1d8. It will also allow us to explode our cannon for 3d8 damage on a 20-foot area. I'm not planning to use that here, but I do think that this can be useful and really matches our fantasy. The Winged Boot infusions is probably the best infusions we are getting on our entire career. This will grant us a flying speed equal to our movement speed for 4 hours, and we can recover 2 hours for every 12 hours that we are not using that. Once you take that, you can finally take out your arch enemy Spider-Man, unless you decide to play for the good guys. Okay, jokes aside, the reason we took Wizard levels is primarily because of the Awakened Spellbook option. It will grant us 3 benefits, but the one we really care about is the second bullet point. It reads, when you cast a Wizard spell with a spell slot, you can temporarily replace the damage type with a type that appears on another spell in your spellbook, which magically alters the spell formula for this casting only. The latter spell must be of the same level as the spell slot expanded. We are gonna use that ability a lot later on, because for now, the best thing we can do is to cast Fireball. Fireball is one of the most iconic spells in D&D. It has a huge range of 150 feet. You deal 86 fire damage in a 20-foot radius sphere. It would be nicer if we got that on level 5 instead of level 11, but we can upcast Fireball, and we also can add our additional d8 of damage due to the Arcane Firearm feature. So let's go to the damage breakdown again. On the first turn of the combat, the best thing we can do is to cast Bane on our enemies. On the second round, we are casting Fireball, using our 4th level spell slot. On the remaining 2 rounds of the combat, we're gonna use Acid Splash. And again, for every single one of our bonus actions, we're gonna hit 2 creatures with our Eldritch Cannon. If we do wanna boost our damage, we can use Fury of the Small up to 4 times for an additional 16 damage. Using this strategy, the total DPR for one combat round is 48 and 52 if we use our Fury of the Small. So now let's level up this character up to level 20. The most important spells we're gonna pick up here are Wall of Fire and Elemental Bane. We are also getting the 45 position from the Artillerist subclass. For ASI of feat, we're gonna pick up Alert and Elemental Adept. Wall of Fire is the most important thing this character gonna do for the rest of its career. It's the one good concentration spell we have access to. It deals 5d8 fire damage for each creature that ends its turn within 10 feet of the wall. A creature takes the damage when it enters the wall for the first time on a turn or ends its turn there. The thing about the spell is, we are such a high level now that it's likely that our enemies have either immunity or resistance to fire damage. So the main focus of the build from this point forward is to make the spell as good as possible. And for that matter, we are taking the Elemental Adept feat. It reads, when you gain this feat, choose one of the following damage types: Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning or Thunder damage. And of course we're choosing Fire. Spells you cast ignore resistance to the damage of the chosen type. In addition, when you roll damage for a spell you cast that deals damage of the type, we can treat any one on a damage die as 2. That second bullet point, we're gonna ignore it because it's a very small boost. But the first bullet point is really important for the Wall of Fire spell. The other very important spell that we need to get and never ever cast, it's Elemental Bane. This spell is awful, but it's really important for us to have that. The spell reads, choose a creature that you can see within range and choose one of the following types: Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning or Thunder. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be affected by the spell for its duration. The first time each turn the affected target takes damage of the chosen type, the targets take 2d6 extra damage of the type. Moreover, the target loses any resistance to the damage type until the spell ends. For a 4th level spell slot, this effect is pretty weak, especially because it's on a Constitution saving throw. But the thing is, the spell lists 5 different types of damage, and since it's a 4th level spell, that means if we do face enemies that are immune to fire damage, we can change the damage of Wall of Fire to, let's say, Thunder or Lightning that are more rarely resisted damage types. Again, fire damage is one of the worst damage types, therefore in high levels we are not gonna use our flamethrower anymore. In addition, we need to have some time of force movement in order to keep dealing damage with our Wall of Fire spell. Therefore, from this point on, we're gonna use the Force Ballista option that will let us deal 3d8 force damage and push a creature 5 feet away from the cannon. Therefore, the strategy here is to keep hitting creatures with the Force Ballista in order for them to take damage from the Wall of Fire. Thankfully, when you reach level 15 in Artificer, we get a 45 position feature that will grant us the ability to create a second Eldritch Cannon. So now we can hit creatures with 2 different cannons and push them twice in the same round. The other feat we are getting before our career ends is Alert. Since we are mainly focusing on Wall of Fire, having the opportunity to place the spell early within the combat can really make the difference here. It also gives us some additional bonuses, like the fact we cannot be surprised and creatures do not have advantage against us whenever we cannot see them. But we are here mainly because of the +5 bonus to initiative. Okay, so let's move on to our final damage breakdown. You already know the strategy here. Cast Wall of Fire using the highest spell slot we have. Again, if you do face creatures that have immunity to fire damage, choose another damage type, but then you will have to cast Wall of Fire at a lower spell slot. For the remaining rounds of the combat, we're gonna use the Acid Splash cantrip. We have now 2 Force Ballistas and we can use Fury of the Small up to 4 times in this combat. So overall, our DPR is 78.5, and if we are spending our Fury of the Small is 84.5. Okay guys, so this was the build for today. If you liked this video, please click the like button subscribe, and activate the notification bell for some awesome videos. Bye!